Hey everyone, how are you? Welcome to the episode 3 of Django Mastery series, and in this particular episode we are going to explore about Django templates and how dynamic data and variables works in Django templates. In the last episode we have already seen how we can render a Django template in our Django website. So we created a template home.html and we were able to render this in our website. But the thing is, this is a completely static data and it doesn't have anything dynamic. It is completely static and fixed. But in this particular episode, we are going to see how we can render some dynamic data and variables in our Django template. And for understanding this Django templates, we are going to create a real world mini project. This is going to be a really small project, but this is going to help us to understand the concepts of Django templates and dynamic data and variables in the Django templates. We are going to build a quote of the day kind of web page and we will explore how Django template works with dynamic data. So the project is quote of the day. What you are going to learn in this episode is how can you pass variables from your views to the templates. Now, if you remember something from the episode 2, we have already seen how we can call a particular Django template and how we can render a particular Django template from our views. So let me show you the views.py file. In the views.py file, we have already created this home function, which is to serve for our home page. This is a function based view, which is returning a render home.html. So that's basically how we render an HTML or a template in our Django website. So what we are doing is from our views, we are rendering an HTML file or we are returning an HTML file. What we are going to do right now is we are going to pass some variables, pass some data from the views to the templates. As of now, what we have done is we have just called our HTML home.html file and we have rendered this, but we have not passed any data or any kind of variables. And that is what we need to do in this particular episode. We will see how can we pass variables from views to templates. We are also going to see how can we render the single variables and the lists which we are receiving in the template using the Django template language. So from views, once you pass the data to the HTML template, this HTML template should also know how I can render that data, right? Because the data which I will pass it in the Python language. And this is an HTML, right? So the magic is being done by the Django template engine. The Django template engine will understand about the data which we will pass from views and it will be able to render it. And that's what we will see. How can we render single variables and lists using Django template language? We are going to see how we can use loops and conditions in our Django template using Django template in our HTML file, and we are going to see the real world folder structure for template based rendering. In the last episode, we created our home.html file directly in the templates folder, but there is a problem with this, and I am going to tell you what will be the real world folder structure, how we actually structure our templates in our Django project. So let us start by doing it. First of all, let me run the server and let me show you what we have as of now. To run the server, you should go to your terminal and your terminal should point to the project folder. So right now my terminal is at the Django mastery folder. You can see it is at the Django mastery folder, and in the Django mastery folder I have this manage.py file. I have already activated my virtual environment venv, which we have created in the episode 1 of this series. So let me run the server. To run the server, I can say python manage.py run server. Hit enter and this is going to run your server. Now what you can do is you can go to a browser, and in the browser you can visit your particular local server, which is 127.0.0.1:8000. So basically this is the local host and this is the port 8000. Hit enter and this is going to render the HTML file which we have created using the Django template engine. Now our goal in this particular episode is when somebody goes to our website and they say /quotes, I should be able to show some quotes in this particular web page. Right now it is saying that page not found because we have not implemented anything for this particular URL, which is fine. That's what we need to do in this particular episode. Let's go back to the code editor and let's do one thing. First of all, let's actually create the routing logic. We will come to the business logic in our views.py. First of all, let's avoid this 404 error. Let us just create our routing logic and complete our URLs. For that, what you need to do is you need to go to the my site folder, which is the project configuration folder. In this project configuration folder, go to the urls.py. In the urls.py, we have this URL patterns, right? This is an empty path and this is for admin. Now this empty path is telling me that whenever there is an empty path like this, it will be redirected to home.urls. Now what I want is if somebody says /quotes, if somebody goes to this particular path, I should be able to show some quotes which I will be creating in my views.py, that is my business logic layer. So what I will do is I will say this particular part of my path of my request will be handled by this particular path, and the remaining quotes, this will be handled by home.urls. So let's go to home.urls, and in the home.urls, go to the urls.py file, basically the home folder, which is your home application, and in the home application you need to go to the urls.py file. In that you need to create another path. So let us say it is path and the path is quotes. In quotes, what I want is I want to return views.quotes. So when somebody goes to this particular path /quotes, what will happen? It will be received as this path to our server. our server will be able to handle this part of the path using this path. So this path will be handled, right? And the remaining part codes will be redirected to home.urls using the include function. So the remaining part codes should be handled by urls.py, right? What I will do is I will go to the urls.py in my home folder. In that I will update my path in the URL patterns, and I will say there is one more path which is path codes, and this is going to return views.codes. Now we have not created this codes function, which is fine. That is something which we will do. So let us go to the views.py file in the home folder. In the home folder, we have this views.py file and we have the home function. So we have already created this home function, which is a function based view. You can see in the urls.py, we are returning the views.home for an empty path. Now let us create another function codes. For that, go to views.py, create a function def codes, accept the HTTP request which is incoming, and return an HTTP response for now. Now this is the basic structure of our codes function. Let's actually comment it and say that this is also a function based view for codes. This is for codes page. Now let us go back to the browser and let us see what has happened as of now. Go to the browser and refresh this particular page, which was earlier giving the error 404. Now this is going to give me codes page function based view. And why is this happening? Let us understand it again. This is the URL requested from the user as a client to my server. Now this request will be received by my Django application, and this particular path is going to be checked in my URL patterns which we have. The path we have is /codes. This is not going to match admin because it is starting with admin, but this is going to match path, which is an empty path. Now this empty path is going to consume this many part of the requested path, and the remaining part codes, this will be given to home.urls. Now in the home.urls, when you go to the home folder, in the home you have this urls.py, go to urls.py, you have the codes, right? This is the codes we have. So this is the path which is matching. Now this path is not redirecting me to anywhere. It is actually returning a function based view. The view is views.codes. Go to the codes function. In the codes function, we are receiving the HTTP request and we are returning the response as an HTTP response, which is codes page function based view, and that is what we can see in our browser as a response. Now up to this point, we have done the basic setup. Now what we need to do is we need to return a template. That's the thing we need to do in this particular episode, right? So first of all, let us create a template for codes. Go to the home folder. This is your application folder. In this home folder, you have these templates, right? And we know that Django tries to find out the templates in the templates folder. In the templates folder, I have this home.html. I will create another file code.html to display the codes. But there is a problem right now. Let me show you what the problem is. Now we have an application home, right? In the home, I have a folder templates, and in the templates, I have this home.html. In the views, when I say return render home.html, I can see that my home.html is being returned. Now let us say your website or your particular project, the Django Mastery project, is having many different applications. We have the home app. Let us say there is another app which is blog. In the blog also you can have some templates, right? And in the templates you can have another file which is named as home.html. In this case, if your views file is returning home.html, it will be confused that which home.html should I return, because this logic do not depend upon which particular application it is in. It will try to search for all the templates folder which is there, and this will search for this particular template folder and this particular template folder. Both are having a home.html file, right? Now this is the problem, right? Now to avoid this problem, what we generally do is, which is the best practice, in the home folder, which is our application, we create a folder, we create another folder templates which we have created, and then again we create a folder with the same name as our application. So it will be home/home.html, and when you will do it for blog, this will be blog/templates, then /blog/home.html. Now how is this going to help? When we will write render, this is our request and this is the path, we will say home/home.html or blog/home.html. We are going to call it as home/home.html, blog/home.html, and this is going to be unique, right? Because our application name is always going to be unique. They will not be duplicate. So to avoid any kind of confusion, we choose this particular folder structure. And as a beginner who is trying to learn about Django, this can be very confusing, but that's fine guys. It is just the beginning. You just need to understand that we are trying to avoid the confusion. If you are not having this folder, there will be a confusion that which home.html my particular view or my particular render is referring to, because this is just a logic. It doesn't depend upon which particular folder it is in. So what we will do is, we will say in the templates folder, create another folder and name it as home, because right now my application name is home. Move the home.html in this home file, and in the home create another file and name it as codes.html. Hit enter, and now we have the templates, then we have the home, and in the home folder we have two files, home.html, codes.html. Right now the codes.html is empty, which is fine. Let me close this one, And now if I go to the views.py file, how I would need to render my home.html now is I would have to say request, that's my request in my render, then home/home.html. This is my complete code. And now let us do the same thing. Let us try to render the codes.html in the codes function. So instead of returning an HTTP response, let's try to return render. We will render an HTML template. We would say request, that is the request which we have received, and we would say home/codes.html. That is my codes.html file which I want to render when somebody is going to the website at this particular path /codes. Now let us go to the browser, and in the browser try to refresh the page, and this time you will see that this is completely empty, which is fine. Right now we are rendering it using the codes.html file. Let me try to add some code into it. Let's go back to the code editor and let's try to update our code.html file. In the codes.html file, first of all, we need to write some basic structure. So the basic structure is we start with this doc type as HTML, then we have the HTML tag, and then we have a head, right? And in the head, we have a title, right? So let's give a title. Let's give the title as quote of the day, and let's close the head tag. After the head tag, we need to have a body tag, right? And let's close the HTML tag as well. Now this is a basic structure, right? In the body, let's just write a simple message, h1 tag, and let us say quote of the day. Save this particular file. Now go to your browser again, and in the browser, try to refresh the page, and this time you will see we have a title and we have this message, quote of the day. Now up to this point, we are good. We are able to render the home/codes.html file when somebody is visiting to our /codes endpoint or /codes web page. Now, if somebody is visiting to our website, to our web page, we should also be able to show some quotes, right? So there are two things to do. First thing is, I want to send some quotes from my views.py file to the template. And then this template should be able to render that particular quote in the web page. So first of all, we need to send some quote. So we should have some quotes, right? So I have some list of quotes. Let me copy this here. So these are the quotes I have. 5 quotes: believe in yourself, push your limits, stay consistent, dream big, work hard, and success is no accident. We have 5 quotes. I want to render one of the quotes in this. What I want to do is, I want to say if somebody comes to the web page, they will see some random quote out of this. For that, I have to send that random code, and I will take help of random module of Python. I would say import random at the top of the views.py file. Then I would say a random quote out of this is equal to random.choice. The choice function will be able to extract one value out of a list, any random value. So this is my list, quotes, and let's actually do one thing. The function name and the variable name is same. So let's change it. Let's say quotes list, and let's call it as quotes list. Now what we can do is we can say we have a random quote that is equal to random.choice, and we are sending this particular list. Then this is going to return some random quote out of this. I have to send this random quote to the quotes.html file. That's the first thing which I need to do. For that, what we need to do is we need to do a change in the render function. What we are doing right now is we are returning render. The first argument is the HTTP request which we have received. The second argument is the HTML path which we need to render. And the third argument is the data which we want to send. And the data which we want to send should be a dictionary. So let us do one thing. Let us create a dictionary data. Let us say data is equal to dictionary. Now this is a dictionary in Python, right? In dictionary, what we do is we store some data in key value format. So let's create a key in my data and let's call it data. The key is quote and the value is a random_quote. So what we have done right now is we have created a dictionary. In the dictionary, we have created a key quote and the value is random quote. Now, if I want to send the random quote to my HTML file, I have to send it as a dictionary because I can only send a dictionary of data from my views.py to the HTML code or to the HTML template. I have created the dictionary data. In this dictionary, I have added a key quote. The value is random quote. And to send this data, I would pass this as the third argument in the render function. So in the render function, pass the third argument as data. So basically, this is a dictionary which we are passing. And now we are able to pass this data to the quotes.html file. This is the part 1. Once we render this quotes.html file, we should also know that how can I render the random quote in my HTML file. For that, there is a syntax. The syntax is starting with 2 curly braces, ending with 2 curly braces. Focus on this part. If you want to render the random quote value, the key which is storing this value is quote. What I will do in the HTML file is, I would say I have to render the value of quote in my HTML file. For that, I will write this particular syntax. In this syntax, we are starting with 2 curly braces and then ending it with 2 curly braces. Inside these curly braces, I have to write the name of the key which we have received from views.py. From views.py, I have received the key as quote. What I will do is, in the HTML file, within this syntax, I will write the name of the key. The key is quote, and that's it. We are able to send the data like this, and we are able to receive the data and render it like this. Now go to the browser, and in the browser, try to refresh the page, and you will see a quote. The quote is dream big, work hard. Now this value is dynamic. That's the goal of this episode. How can we render a dynamic value from our views to our template? If you will keep refreshing this particular page, you will see some different codes, because every time we are just selecting a random code and that is being displayed here. This is how we can render a single variable in our Django template. Now let's try to understand how can we render a list of variables or a list of values. That's the next thing which we are going to do. And before this, let's do one thing. Let us put this particular code inside a p tag. So I would say p, inside this p tag, I would render this particular value. So this should be good now. What we are doing is, we are having a p tag. Inside the p tag, the value is this code which we have received from our views. And this is the job of Django template engine to render the value here, right? Now the next thing is, let's try to render all the codes which we have. This is a code which got selected randomly. Let's try to render all the codes, and this is going to teach us how we can use a loop inside the template. So before this, we need to pass all the codes, right? So go to views.py. In the views.py, add a one more key in your data. Let us say data, and add it as all codes, and the value is equal to codes underscore list. This is the codes list we have. We are passing one more key from our views.py, which is all codes, which is a list. In the particular HTML file in your template, how can you render all the codes, or how can you render the value of a list? See, the thing is, you cannot just say, okay, I will use the same syntax. Maybe let us try to do it. If I use the same syntax, in the same syntax, if I say this is my key name, all underscore quotes, if I try to render this value, this is not a perfect way to do it. When you will go to a browser and try to refresh the page, you will see this as a list, right? Now I don't want to see it as a Python list. I want to see it as a HTML list. For that, I will need to run a loop, right? So let's go back to the code editor, and in the code editor, let's try to understand the syntax of how to run a loop in the Django template. So let me show you one more syntax we have, which is starting with curly brace, then a percent symbol, ending with percent, and then a curly brace. So basically, this is the syntax which you will have to understand. We need to start with a curly brace, then a percent symbol, then inside this we will write something, and I will tell you what. But for now, you need to understand that we start with curly brace and percent symbol, and end this with percent and curly brace symbol. Inside this, I need to say for. I will have to run a simple for loop like I do in Python. I will say for quote in all underscore quotes. This is how simply I can just run a loop in my Django template over a list. I can get rid of this, and I can say for quote in all quotes. And now inside this, what I want to do with each of the quote, I have to render it, right? So I will say li. Now li is how we display a list in HTML. So I would say li. Inside the li, I would render the value of quote as a string, just like I was doing here, right? So I would say double curly brace start, double curly brace end, then inside this write the value as quote. I am referring to this particular quote, and since this is matching the name, let's do one thing. Let's write this particular looping variable name as q, and then change it to q. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just running a for loop over all the quotes I have, and for all the quotes I'm just saying render it as a li tag. Now I should know how to end this loop as well, right? Because if this is the loop which has started and this is the part of the loop, I can write a lot of code under this. I can say a p tag, then a form, then a div tag, a lot of things I can do, right? How would this template engine know that this for loop has ended? For that, the syntax is curly brace percent end for percent curly brace. This is the complete syntax of how do you run a for loop in a Django template engine or a Django template. Now, if you will go back to the browser, you will see that all the list or all the codes are now visible, and they are visible as a list. See, this is the list, this is the li, right? Now, let me go back to the code editor again. Let's do some polish to our data. What we can do is, we can write it inside a ul tag, and the ul tag will start here, which is unordered list. Inside the ul tag, I want to render this data, and then I will end my ul tag, that is the unordered list tag. One more thing which we can do is, we can understand about if and else condition as well. So we know that how we can render a single variable, how we can run a loop. Now how do you write a condition for if and else? What you need to do is, you need to say the same syntax as you have in for loop. You need to say curly brace percent space percent curly brace. Inside this you can say if and whatever is your condition. So let's say the condition is quote, if quote, that is if I have a quote, then I would say today's quote is whatever quote the user has sent. And if I doesn't have a quote, for that the syntax is curly brace percent space else percent curly brace. Else I can say no quote for today, and then I have to end this else as well. For this I will say curly brace percent and if percent curly brace. This is the basic syntax of if and else. This is how you tell Django that I'm going to write some Python code. Then you write a Python code as if quote, If the code is available, then this message will be printed in the HTML file or in the browser, else this message is going to be printed. Now you might say that, hey, what if I want to write a else if condition or elif condition? This is simple. You don't need to worry about this. You can say curly brace percent elif, then whatever condition you want to give, maybe all underscore quotes. You want to say all quotes. If all the quotes are available, you can say you can find all the quotes above. Save the code. Well, now what's happening is we have written a if else if condition. If we have a quote, then this message will be printed. Else, if we don't have a quote but we have all quotes, okay, there is a problem. We need to say percent curly brace. Now this is the complete syntax. If we have all the quotes, then this message will be printed. Else, no quote for the day. Now let me go back to the browser and let me show you how this particular output is going to look like. You can refresh the page and you can see today's quote is believe in yourself. That's the same thing which is here, right? I can keep refreshing this and you will see that both these values are matching. Now you might say that, okay, let me check the if else if condition. Let's go to the code editor, and in the code editor, remove this quote. If you do not have the quote, let's comment it down, remove this. Now go to the browser again. Now you will see that your condition is working. And if you will refresh, you can see that you can find all the quotes above. This is the message we have got, because in the code editor, if you will go to the code editor, the condition is if we have the quote, then this is the message. If we do not have the quote but we have all the quotes, then this is the message. This is how if else if condition is working. So basically, this is the complete thing which you need to understand here. This is the syntax, and inside this you can just write the variable name or the key name which you have received, and this is going to inject your dynamic data like usernames, product, titles, etc. If you want to run a loop, use this particular syntax. Inside this, just run a simple loop for item in a list, loop through your data like blog, post, items, anything. And if you want to show or hide something based on some data, you can say if some condition using this particular syntax. You don't need to remember all of this because we are going to create a lot of projects, a lot of things we are going to do in this particular Django Mastery series. This is something which will be in your habit and you don't need to remember all of this. You will be able to memorize all of this without even knowing that you are memorizing it. So don't worry about memorizing all these things. This will be auto memorized. So I think guys, that's it for this episode. In the next episode of this series, we are going to learn about Django forms, where a particular user can type and submit their own message or their own code. So right now what you can see is we have some list of codes, but what we want is a particular user can submit their own code, right? We are going to see it using Django forms, and we are going to see it in the next episode of this particular series. So that's it for this video, guys. If you are liking this particular series, if you are liking the Django Mastery series, and if you are aiming to be a master in Django, then make sure that you hit that like button. If you have any questions, feedbacks, then make sure that you put it in the comment box, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching this video, guys.